We are presenting late 18th century France through the lens of podcasts with gaming as a visual aid. Through podcasts, it is easy to learn in-depth details about historical events in French history. Using the game Europa Universalis 4, we can see month-by-month corresponding events and times in order to further our understanding. In Podcast Revolutions, Mike Duncan presents the French Revolution and all of its build-up. We use his podcast to describe the previous painting due to its symbolic significance. During and after the meeting of a States General, events started to slip out of everyone's control and were unpredictable. There were a couple of things to keep in mind. Even with the underlying problems with the Ancien Regime, it will take a lot of mistakes and misunderstandings to push this thing towards a revolution. If they had proper leadership and communication, the States General of 1789 would have not needed such a full-blown revolution. It actually takes years for things to unfold, with most big moments lodged between months or even years. We could picture them as a series of tornadoes. The painting represents the first tornado, the tennis court oath.
The National Assembly was prevented from entering the assembly room, so the delegates went to the largest unlocked room where they could meet up to vote. This is a close-up of Western Europe on the day of the tennis court oath. The corresponding Revolutions episode is 3.10. This episode shows the details behind the tennis court oath and what happens in it. This is the day the Bastille was stormed. Revolutionaries took the Bastille, and this corresponds with the podcast episode 3.11. This is the day the National Assembly proclaimed the abolition of the monarchy. France is no longer a monarchy. We can also see that France is at war with Austria here. The corresponding episode is 3.25. This shows the height of Napoleon's power. This shows when French power was at its peak. And this also shows the extent of this game's value, showing rapidly changing borders with wide-ranging wars. And this image corresponds with episode 3.54 in the Revolutions podcast. Now we will return to the painting and details of the revolutions explained by Mike Duncan.
On the day that they were expected to formally welcome all the delegates from the First Estate, the door is locked and guards are telling us we can't come in. Yeah, I'm sure your intentions are perfectly benign. Refusing to be broken up, the delegates then cast about for the nearest unlocked room large enough to hold them all, and someone suggested an indoor tennis court 3 blocks down the road. So that's where they went, and there took part in the first great dramatic set piece of the Revolution. Written by the lawyer Target and proposed by Mounier, the delegates were presented with the following affirmation. The National Assembly, considering that it has been summoned to establish the constitution of the kingdom, to effect the regeneration of public order, and to maintain the true principles of monarchy, that nothing can prevent it from continuing its deliberations in whatever place it may be forced to establish itself. And finally, that wheresoever its members are assembled, there is the National Assembly. It decrees that all members of this assembly shall immediately take a solemn oath not to separate and to reassemble wherever circumstances require, until the constitution of the kingdom is established and consolidated upon firm foundations.